You've likely heard the term New World Order, but now they're calling themselves the Global South. I'm going to talk about this today and the changes that have come through that will affect you, that you need to start to make decisions based on. All of that in today's video. Let's begin. The first thing I want to talk about is that clearly there is not enough self-sufficiency in many Western countries. Look at Europe, heavily reliant on Russia that was exposed. We'll talk about that some here in the beginning. We need to understand that there's clear dominance from Russia still today. Okay, so all of this, we're going to sanction Russia. We're going to do so much against Russia. And yet, I'm going to show you how clearly it didn't work, at least in the way that they had hoped. All right, and this was partly because of what they did. They were building pipelines. They were building all these things that would put them through into even more reliance on Russia, thinking everything's going to be okay. And then here we are. So looking at this, and prices are, of course, at risk always and forever, it seems. New developments for lithium right now. That's important. And of course, I want to ask you the question right now of who is the world's most booming economy. I bet you can't guess who is the world's most booming economy right now. Okay, we'll answer that question at the end. Let's look at this first. EU imports record volumes of liquefied natural gas from Russia. Wait a minute, I thought they were sanctioned. Wait a minute, I thought they said no. Well, they're still doing it. Belgium and Spain are the world's second and third biggest importers of Russian LNG this year. I'm not making this thing up, okay? Look at this. This is from August 30th, this date. They are still doing this today. We got to realize that. India consumes 11 times more crude oil from Russia, showing ineffectiveness of Western sanctions. Clearly, that didn't deter India from dealing with Russia. They mentioned the fact that they increased the shipping price for them, even though they're giving them a cut. But I guess it still works out. They're getting a discount overall. Russia may have earned $1.2 billion by exploiting oil price cap loophole. All right, now, hey, $1 billion these days doesn't seem like that much, but certainly they're going for it. Why not? Hey, $1 billion here, $1 billion there. It adds up. And so this is just part of it. China is scooping up Iranian oil. Some 1.5 million barrels per day will be imported this month. So these countries here are not necessarily listening to the sanctions. They are doing everything they can to go around them. And now they are doing all these kind of developments that are happening with, the BRICS nations and so on, really showing us that they're making it clear. Look at the leader of China, not even going to G20. Some say that that was done intentionally to say, we have our own world order, we are the global south, and so on. Do you think so? Do you think he didn't show up on purpose? Or was it, something else was going on and he needed to be there? The country's dealing with some problems. And so, could that be the reason? It's up to you to decide. All right, the Saudis will have a say in U.S. elections. Just talking about the crude oil prices, of course. Whenever we have high crude oil, that creates resistance, potentially creates recession if it gets too high. And Saudi Arabia is largely the one that is deciding the price of oil at any given moment. So we're going to watch that very closely. Saudi oil flows to China set to soar despite global supply curbs. And of course, we're going to look at this partnership going much further in the next few years. China sets up the BRICS. China says, hey, how about we expand the BRICS? Now you got Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates. You've got, many different countries. Even Egypt was in on that. Look at Argentina. All these different countries. And that seems to be focused around, they call it the global south, but a lot of emerging markets, and of course, a lot of these countries that have resources. Saudi Arabia, come on. We're talking about these very big countries, lots of resources, and of course, that will determine the future. There's going to be bumps along the way. They all have struggles. There's no question about that. But what we see here is extremely important. All right. The European Union's dependency on Russian gas has not been solved. It has only been disguised as a massive increase in dependency on coal. In the case of Germany, an expensive liquefied natural gas imported from the rest of the world. Just think about that, okay? Hard coal and lignite accounted for 31%, natural gas 13%, mineral oil 8%, and so on, okay? So it just shows us that, they're pushing for renewable energy. They're pushing to get away from Russia. And at the same time, what are they using? Coal, okay? And so it just, to me, it just looks like nothing they've been doing over the last little while has worked out well. They built all that infrastructure, pipelines coming from Russia, and that has had a material impact on the economy of Europe. The whole economy suffering as a result of all this. I want to talk to you about lithium. Obviously, lithium-ion batteries are in everything today, from cell phones to just about everything. Your dishwasher. I mean, it's all over the place. So this is a very key mineral. World's biggest lithium reservoir found in supervolcano McDermott caldera in Nevada, worth $1.5 trillion with $1.5 trillion worth of the precious metal that powers world's technology. And gotta say, $1.5 trillion worth. Is it worth taking a dip in the supervolcano? I don't know about that. It's gonna get pretty hot in there, let me tell you. But anyway, you could see that there's a lot of this out there. Can it be accessed? That's the question that we'll find out. Were they able to get it? This, in the case of ExxonMobil, in talks with Tesla, Ford, Volkswagen on supplying lithium. Where are they getting this from? Arkansas. So this is potentially what they're saying here, massive supply of lithium. And if they're able to get that, very bullish for ExxonMobil, number one, very good for the supply chain as a whole. And Arkansas will benefit from this potentially if there are actually proven resources. They can get it out. They can do everything. There's not going to be regulations that stand in the way. This is very good for ExxonMobil. Argentina's Pan America Energy joins oil industry's push into lithium. So we want to see that. Of course, Argentina, one of those countries, got a lot of agriculture. They're in the BRICS. And hey, are they going to get into lithium and expand that? We will see what happens. But of course, this just shows us where the supplies are coming from. And so we want to take advantage of that if we can. Now let's talk about commodities. Let's look at something here. I found this to be interesting. Wanted to share it with you. This happens to be the stuff of cities. And so I read through this. But what I wanted to highlight for the purposes of this video are these at the bottom of the screen, if you could see that. Brick, concrete, steel, glass, asphalt, and wood. And so we could look at those individual commodities, but that's kind of what makes up the buildings. That kind of makes up the roads and things. So this is the infrastructure of cities. And when you look at that, you got to understand, where are these resources coming from? A lot of that is actually, for the people in the US, it's coming from the US. So that means supply chain problems, not as much of an issue. Looking at, whenever there's potential mismanagement, potential geopolitical problems, that doesn't affect this. When it's coming from the United States, when it's being manufactured in the United States, these are good things. So that means that the United States is less prone to shocks than, we'll say, Europe is. And so that's why I position Europe much lower, in a much worse circumstance than the United States. There's no question about that. So I'm not, when I look at this stuff, I kind of have to balance it out. This is always a sliding scale, of course, but just so you know where we are with resources. What powered the world in 2022? I think it's pretty clear. Look at that. Coal, 35%. Can you believe that? 35%. Now, hydroelectric is fantastic. It's constantly flowing. The energy is constantly there. But hey, there's only so many places that they can get this from. And so wherever it's utilized, fantastic. But, what do? Coal, they pull it out of the ground, they use it. It is used in a lot of, more in the developing nations, and still at 35%. So it's got a long way to go to get it to where they need it to be, based on their, emissions projections and so on. Why the world just can't kick coal. And they just get into some of the details. If you wanted to read it, I thought it was relevant, so I put it here. But the world, particularly in Asia, are heavily reliant on coal still. And while they've said that, yes, we're going to get rid of our consumption of coal, we're going to go renewable energy, it just seems like it's so far off. That's just, I don't know when they're intending on doing so. And now, who is the most booming economy? Guyana, set to grow 38% this year. I mean, unbelievable. And why? Massive crude deposits, first drilled by Exxon, transforms Guyana. Okay. And so look, this economy last year grew 62%, and the boom is forecast to last years. So they finally are not only having the resource there, they're pulling it out of the ground and they're using that. And so this is beneficial, again, for Exxon, of course, the economy of Guyana, and to see who their trading partners are. So I just wanted to bring that to you to see how one country with those resources, utilizing them, what it can do to the economy. Very good stuff, always. And that's an important one. We got to ask the question, okay, what do we do about it? What can I do? That's what I do in every video. We talk about the actions of what you can do. And I think it's very clear that countries who have the resources and can use them are positioned to do well for growth. Okay, others are in trouble. So if you're just reliant on, the old ways, the banking and all these things, maybe like something like, let's just say, the city of London, it's going to be very good for a very small set of people and not so good for others. We need resources. We need more than just, something that was fantastic 100, 200 years ago. That's very clear. Know what commodity comes through where and to where. So you got to track that. I've covered this many times in previous videos, but know where it's coming from. If it is a copper, okay, I know where it's coming from. But who's buying that copper? Is it soybeans? Okay, who's producing the soybeans? Where are they getting shipped to? All of these different things. So we know how the tensions are between the two. Soybeans are being bought less from the United States by China, and they're moving to Brazil. They're saying, I'd rather deal with Brazil on this. At the same time, we could see, different things that have been happening basically with China and Australia. I mean, look at all these different countries, okay? So clearly, if they can set up a new partner, like in the case of Russia, a lot of these countries in Europe said, we don't want your resources anymore. Well, they went to India, they went to other parts of Asia, and they said, hey, do you want to buy our stuff? They said, yes, absolutely. And now they're exporting even more than they did before. All right. So I think it's important to understand that we invest what's proven, only what's proven. Don't say, yeah, this company is going to do this thing in 10 years from now and it's going to create this big boom. We can't do that. We can't manage that. That's too at risk of a shock to happen to you. So don't do that. When you look at, where these valuations are coming from, watch, just be very clear about that. All right. Looking at this is basically just to get in touch with me directly, to get the video of the day. All of that information is located at Discord. The link is in the description. I want to see you over there. Click there and then say hi when you come on in. The comment of the day, Uncle Sam said, I am on Social Security, so it will go the CBDC route. I saw this totalitarian dystopia coming a few years ago, decided and no investments. I'm going to put everything into a small off-grid homestead. And that is definitely part of what we talk about with the pillars of prosperity. Yes, you can increase your income, but also at the same time, self-sufficiency is important. And so you can go one or the other. You can do both, but you got to do something. Don't sit idle. Don't just wait for things to come. Take action today. Be proactive. If you want any other information, you can always reach me directly at Discord. Always, I love your comments. Thank you very much for them. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.